Welcome to the Gavel, where we keep an eye on the activities of the Nigerian Parliament. I'm Terry Kumi. The countdown to resumption of plenary and full legislative activities continues, even though there would likely be a postponement by about a week because of the Edo governorship election. Well, while Parliament is on break, some scanty engagements continue. So let's begin with the interactive session of the Speaker with youths under the Legislative Mentorship Initiative Program, which was introduced by the Speaker of the 9th House, Femi Gbajabiamila. We'll also look at the House Committee's oversight to Benway on rural development and Abbas on power. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, on Wednesday met with a third cohort of the Legislative Mentorship Initiative comprising young persons. The event featured a question and answer session as the Speaker urged youths in the country to pay attention to details in order to achieve success and become good leaders.
Intergenerational interface is very, very key to societal cohesion and progress. However, in the Nigerian society today, we have some gaps that are preventing this. So as an intergenerational uniter, sir, and as a youth speaker, like she said, what advice can you give us as young leaders so that we can also bridge this gap in our respective spaces?
The younger generation is a very lucky one. The best education, the best technology is coming at your own time. Majority of you are very versatile about what is happening all over the world. Unlike the older generation, where the little knowledge you acquire is only through reading of books. Here, the internet is there for you. And most of you are doing very, very well in that. I think the only area where the older generation is a little bit better than the younger is in the area of being articulate in doing things, attention to details. The younger generation is a little bit in hurry when they are doing things. Why? It is not your fault. Before, when you are given an assignment, you have to go to the library, consult, take books, read from the first page to the last page before you probably be able to answer a question. Today, internet has provided you with shortcuts. You don't need to waste time to read so much for you to be able to understand. You just interrogate your computer, it will give you the answer, without you even knowing the process of how the answer is being obtained. So if there is one area I think the younger generation needs to actually improve is on attention to details and to be patient, to take processes logically, patiently from the beginning to the end. Other than that, believe me, we are very, very proud of the younger generation because in all other aspects, I think you are doing better than the older generation. That is just an area that you need to improve. Thank you.
I want to ask if there are any robot mechanisms that the House of Reps members is putting in place to ensure that the youth's voice, especially the LMI fellows, is being heard in policy making.
How has the House included youth in policies about education, young professionals in the education sector?
Policies are basically executive functions. They are not legislative functions. Legislators are not burdened with policies. Policies are the exclusive preserve of the executive. How they regulate, how they recruit, how they fire, how they hire, how they reward is not something that the legislature is concerned with. Ours is to legislate, to bring new bills, to bring new rules, to bring, to amend, to improve where the need arise. But when it comes to issues of policies, how they are derived, how they are formed, how they are implemented, that is strictly the work of the executives. So I won't be able to answer this question because it is not within the purview of what we do here. I'm so sorry. Okay?
The speaker also promised more youth engagements.
Around July 30th also, we had an engagement with youth associations across the country, and we promised them that we'll try as much as possible that every year we'll engage them twice, every 6 months, so that we'll be able to listen to them, hear their problems, seek for their advices, and at the same time too, we'll be able to tell them what programs, what initiatives we have for the youth. So that is one platform that we can be able to use to actually continue engaging the youth of our dear country to hear their problems.
Elsewhere in Benway State, the House Committee on Rural Development was on an oversight visit to the areas affected by farmers and herdsmen clashes. The lawmakers were received by the governor of Benway State.
You see they put one leg down.
The committee's visit included inspections of rural infrastructure projects in various villages across the state. The committee reassured that the welfare of rural residents will be prioritized by government.
We identify Benway State as the food basket of the nation, and Benway State is one of the states that houses most rural dwellers. So we have come to see things for ourselves, and good enough, we inform His Excellency that we're in the state, and he graciously received us. He has spoken to us about the challenges of the state and the prospects as well. We too have also made our commitment to help him, making sure that we speak on those projects that we have seen, to commend the effort of the governor, and the areas that need the attention of the federal government. As a federal institution, we too are going to draw attention of the federal government to see how we can make Benway State a better place.
The governor of Benway State, Reverend Father Hyacinth Earlier, seized the moment to highlight some of the urgent needs of the rural dwellers while hoping for the intervention of the National Assembly.
Let them have the path that leads across to the local market, that leads through to their own farms, and they're satisfied. Let them have certain incentives that would enable them just to gear furthermore on their personal economy. So Nigerians do not have very tall demands at all. And this is why they vote us in. They believe us. They take the word we speak to them to their own banks. And it must be an onus on us, the elected, the anointed, that because our people have invested their trust in us, let us not disenfranchise them. Let us not deceive them. Let us make them feel not just part of the system, but they chose us as messengers of what they want and they are praying for. So as we get out there and we fetch what they sent us, we transport it back to them.
In Abbas State, the House of Representatives Committee on Power was on an oversight visit to power installations in the state, with specific focus on understanding the concerns around metering of consumers. Chairman of the committee, Victor Nwokolo, called for collaboration to boost power.
The visit will go beyond the House Committee on Power.
that I'm going to relate what we have seen and our observations to the Chairman, Senate Committee on Power. And we also go to the Minister to let him know what we have seen. Why are we doing this? So that all hands will be on deck to see how these people can be patronized. Of course, by NEC regulations, they are not selling meters directly to the people. And we need to discuss with other discourse. And we look at a way of policy. What do we do to go into an arrangement where the man who is producing meter will be guaranteed that if I'm giving you meter for 2 weeks, after 2 weeks I'll get my money, because most discos, like they do complain, we don't have money to purchase meter. Now, if we're giving you 2 weeks of grace to say, okay, sell and return our money to us, then what arrangement do we have to ensure that 2 weeks becomes 2 weeks of if they have minimal support from the government by connecting them to the national grid. Anything we can do to connect them, I think they will not have anything that will be a bottleneck to them. Of course, this is a very big complex. You can imagine a single complex employing over 3,000 Nigerians from different backgrounds. That tells you that they are out to make a change.
Definitely, they need to create an enabling environment. They need to be liberal, and whatever that is obtainable in Lagos, Abuja is obtainable in Southeast. They make things available for resources available for people, especially within this region. When you are an investor within this region, you should be appreciated by government, supported by government in every area, not just those that are in the urban cities. Hinterlands where you have the crop of the people should be supported. And I believe that if government can give us power, water, even housing opportunities, that would be we will appreciate that.
What we expect is for the government to encourage the disco to patronize us. Like you said, we have thousands of meters here that needs to be distributed. So we expect that going forward from today, we should be patronized. And with that, there will be growth, not only for our industry, not only for the military camp, but for the Nigerian economy.
Welcome back to the Gavel. The breakdown with Plaque focuses on a bill to repeal and reenact the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015. Now, this bill, sponsored by Senator Issa Jibrin of Kogi East, was read for the second time on the 9th of July 2024 and referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters for further legislative action. Well, here's the breakdown with Plaque.
The bill expands the definition of rape and clarifies drafting ambiguity in the punishment for rape to say that a person convicted for rape is liable to a minimum of 12 years imprisonment and maximum of imprisonment for life. It also replaces the word mentally retarded with mental disorder and redefines harassment to include cyber stalking. It increases fines for a number of offenses, makes provision for compensation, in addition to punishments in cases of spousal battery, child or spouse abandonment of children, or for attack with harmful substances. These provisions are not in the existing VAP Act. However, there are two major introductions to the bill, and some of them innovative. One has to do with provisions and penalties for child defilements. This is actually not in the VAP Act. There is a separate piece of legislation dealing with defilement of a child. The second is the establishment of a survivors support fund, which is to be used for the cost of rehabilitation and reintegration of survivors of violence, and to support NAPTIP to offer support services to victims of violence. NAPTIP is the regulatory body when it comes to issues dealing with the VAP Act. But this bill, which seems to be good, has also raised some dust, especially among women groups and advocates against sexual and gender-based violence. One concern that they have raised is that the inclusion or introduction of child defilement which has a different penalty from rape, creates an inconsistency. So, to clarify, the penalty for the proposed offense of child defilement in this new bill is between 10 and 14 years imprisonment, depending on the age of the victim. So, for instance, if the victim is under 11 years old, I think the punishment is 14 years. If the victim is between 12 and 15 years old, the proposed penalty is 12 years. And then if the victim is between 16 and 18 years old, the proposed penalty is 10 years. And by 10 years, I mean a maximum, not exceeding. So which means that a judge or court can actually give a sentence that is less. But this is different from rape. So rape has a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, between 12 and life. So for advocates, they argue that this is an inconsistency and that it removes children from the general provisions or protections on rape in the VAP Act. The VAP Act didn't create this difference. So what it meant is that someone could be charged for victimizing a child and get a maximum punishment. And I think it's also important to mention that there is a subsisting law on child defilement, that's the Criminal Code Act. And in that act, there's also a different penalty. So again, it's categorized differently. If it's a girl that is under 13 years, the penalty is different. I think it carries the maximum of life. But for girls aged between 13 and 16 years old, I think the punishment is 2 years with or without caning. So I think some of these inconsistencies may need to be clarified, and there may need to be further discussions on this, to agree on a harmonized penalty for defilement of a child and rape. The second issue is the nature of the bill, and I think this is one that a lot of women groups, have made a lot of noise about. So the bill is a repeal and reenactment bill. Initially, when the news of this bill broke, what was in the news and in the media was that it was a repeal bill. And the way people read it was that the VAP Act will cease to exist. But it's actually not correct. It is a repeal and reenactment bill. So this misunderstanding led some of the critics to argue that a repeal will leave a void in the law. But this is not accurate, because a repeal and reenactment bill means that the new bill immediately replaces the repealed law. An example is the Electoral Act 2022. Electoral Act 2022 is a product of the 2010 Electoral Act and amendments made to the Act in 2011 and 2015. They were all consolidated, new provisions were added and old provisions were taken out. So that is what a repeal and reenactment bill does. However, in spite of these arguments, about structure and format, there are real fears that because a repeal and reenactment bill means that all the sections of a bill are open to alteration, key provisions may wittingly or unwittingly be expunged in the process of reenactment. And we saw that with the Electoral Act, where, after the bill came into force, or after the law came into force, people saw new provisions they didn't know existed, and then provisions that were there were taken out without knowledge, of stakeholders. So in this case, it is important that there's engagement and vigilance on the contents of the bill to ensure that the core provisions of the VAP Act, which is a very, very notable and commendable legislation, are retained. For now, the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters is reviewing the bill. They're expected to hold a public hearing on the bill to take in public inputs to inform further legislative action on the matter.
On Constituency Focus this week, Senator Manu Hara, representing Taraba Central Senatorial District, is on the hot seat. He explains his impact as a federal lawmaker on his senatorial district.
As legislator, we don't need to be urged. We've always been intervening when it comes to when our people are in their needs. And that period wasn't an exception. So I intervened in my constituency, and so also many senators too. And my constituents are very, very happy with the intervention. During my campaign, part of what my constituent asked, my constituency, let me say, my senatorial district, maybe perhaps it's the only senatorial district that is not connected to the national grid. Out of the 5 local governments that I'm representing, just 1 local government is connected. That's my local government, which I connected when I was the deputy governor then. But the remaining 4 local governments are not connected to the national grid. And throughout the campaign period, especially the youths, that's what we've been saying. We want to be connected to the national grid. And thank God, in this budget, in the budget of 2023, one of the local governments, there is a funding to connect that local government to the national grid. And then now that supplementary two is coming, the second local government is coming. So I think this is one of the major things that, especially during my campaign, my constituents have been asking. Of course, the second issue is the issue of the Mambila. I happen to come from that senatorial district where the famous Mambila hydroelectric power project is cited. This is one project that is very, very dear to my heart, to ensure that the whole of Taraba Central is being connected to the national grid. And I'm sure in the next 2 budget cycle, by the special grace of God, Taraba Central will be connected to the national grid. If there is any project, if there is one single project that I want to achieve, is to ensure that Taraba Central is connected to the national grid, because currently we are the only senatorial district in the whole of Federation that is not connected to the national grid. Of course, there are other projects. For example, we have like the Takalapia projects and road projects and even the Mambila continuation of the Gashaka to Sardauna road, because it's a federal road. And of course, there are so many, the Jalingo Yola road too, is dilapidated. Yola to Numan, Jalingo to Mutumbiu to Ukari. These are major projects, road projects that are on trunk A road. And those roads are not passable now. And they are major trunk A roads. So we hope that during our time in the National Assembly, the federal government will look into those roads.
And it's a wrap on the Gavel this week. I'm Terry Kumi. Goodbye.